Welcome to the Fans of Fitness podcast, a voice for fitness, health, and wellness professionals. The National Personal Training Institute of Arizona.
Legit instructors teaching you.
No, enough of those bad reps. The good quality trainers that come out of the school.
Let's get into it.
Doug, welcome to the Fans of Fitness podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you, man. So let's get into it. So you've got two studios that you currently operate right now, both called Fitness 48, correct?
That's right. One in Ahwatukee, one in Paradise Valley here.
Awesome. So the first one you said was Ahwatukee, right?
Yeah.
And you've had that one for how long?
It's been about a year and a half now. And then the second one is about 6 months.
And it sounds like it's a lot of work.
It is, between clients, family at home, 2 gyms. It can be quite a bit.
That's a full workload.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we met not too long ago. I don't remember who reached out to who, but we, as a school, National Personal Training Institute of Arizona, we have graduates coming out all the time, and they're looking for work. And I think either I reached out to you or you reached out to us about employment opportunities. And that's one of the things that we do at the school is we try to make sure that our graduates who have all this education go out and they start off in a great environment. Mm-hmm. And it just depends on what they're looking to do, what that environment looks like. You know, there's always, you can go to an EOS, you can go to a Mountainside, you can go to an Esporta, et cetera, or you can go to a studio like yourself.
Yep.
Now, one of the things that when we talked on the phone before that I really thought was awesome is that you support your independent coaches.
That's right.
So you support them with business knowledge and how to grow their business and how to scale it, how to attract clients.
Pretty much anything that a trainer would need, yes. It's a critical thing. Because, to kind of rewind just a little bit is, even my Ahwatukee gym is technically my second gym. I had my first one out in San Diego. And I learned pretty early on that like the business support and just really supporting the trainers really in any possible way that I could was a critical part of that success.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, most of the business stuff at least isn't really taught or is certainly not as accessible as, fitness advice or just working out advice, exercise advice. So definitely a big part of it has to be a big part of the business.
It has to be if you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
Because, we all get our education from somewhere. An online certification, that's a start. But they don't necessarily teach you business in there. I think the cert that we teach within our program, it has a couple pages on business in it.
Sure.
And they added an online component to it as well. It's a little, but it's not, I think, as much as somebody would need right out of the gate to be successful. So I like to say, certifications aren't going to make you successful. Reps are, practices,
sure.
Application is.
I was just about to say something pretty similar to that.
Yeah.
Is that like the certifications and the fitness education will make you a good trainer, but just because you're a good trainer does not mean you'll be a successful trainer. The business side of things has to be there. And typically, the way that I see it is my thing is the business side. I'm not teaching you how to be necessarily a better trainer. My job is to teach you how to be a successful trainer. So I can take a good trainer and make them successful, but I can't take a trainer and make them necessarily a good trainer. I think that I stay in my lane on that deal, so I see the certifications as how to keep your clients safe, how to make effective workouts. But, at the end of the day, you have to have clients to do all those things with. So That's where I see is that, my area of expertise is on how to kind of develop the business side of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to have that to succeed. That certification doesn't mean you're going to be successful. It's the practice. It's the reps.
Yeah.
It's getting out there and applying what you've learned. And that's one of the things that our graduates and students get out of our program. They're getting their certification and getting their diploma, and they're learning all these very, very crucial components of fitness and how to work with people, how to cue movements, how to apply their nutritional advice. They know anatomy, they know fitness business, because we teach that. I think on the phone I was telling you that's my favorite thing to teach, because that in my opinion, that is the most crucial thing. Because if you go to, say, like a commercial box gym, you're still creating a business within a business.
For sure.
It's not...
You're self-employed.
Yeah, it doesn't show that on your W-2 or your paycheck, you know,
sure,
as much.
yeah.
But you still are a business.
Yeah,
you still
absolutely.
have to get clients. You still have to get in front of people. You
It's a
still
sink or
have
swim
to,
type of situation.
It really
for
is.
Sure.
And I think for a lot of people, it's if they're looking for a coach, they want somebody who exhibits confidence, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't say, and I do this almost every time on a podcast. I don't mean to crap on certifications. You have to start somewhere, but if you can start further down the road than you know the usual, then I would start there. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why I've been successful in this industry, is because I had a great start.
I think that it demonstrates interest in it. You know, if you're willing to go through a tougher course, you know, like knowing that you don't necessarily need it to go get a job. Like, you know, I think there's an indication there of how into it are you. Because I think that there's plenty of personal trainers who, like, you know, for me, I had no intention of becoming a personal trainer when I got certified.
Yeah.
I went to see a personal trainer, didn't think that the information I was getting was like, it just didn't make sense to me. And like, I wasn't a fitness person at the time. So like, but it was just kind of like that. I'm doing bicep curls, standing on a BOSU ball. Like this just doesn't really make sense to me. Like and it's like, I'm not saying that person's wrong.
Right.
You know, but like, it was just kind of like, okay, I started looking into things. And then as I started looking into things, I started looking into more things. And I was like, you know, the kind of the path of least resistance for me is, instead of paying a personal trainer, you know, month after month, why don't I just go through the course that a personal trainer does? And that's when I got NASM certified.
Yeah.
You know, and then it just became like, oh, I'm actually really into this. And like, you know, just I enjoyed learning about it. So I do think that there's an indication of just kind of how invested are you into it, into the career. If you're looking for a job, okay, well, it's an easy enough certification to go pass through something simple.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're looking for a career and you want to make a career out of it, I think that that foundation of the education of the fitness side of things is, you have to have that.
I would agree.
Then after that, it's like, okay, I know how to train somebody. Now I need somebody to train. So everything is kind of downstream of the certification.
Right. Yeah. And just going back to business again, it's one of those things that you can either learn from the start, you know, the pitfalls of certain decisions and how to navigate, you know, the business and getting referrals, testimonials, building your books, incorporating your business, all the things that come along with being an independent coach or just being an entrepreneur, period, is what's going to help you get further along and not quit. Because a lot of people, they're very smart. They know a lot about the industry. They know how to help people, but they don't have that business acumen that's going to help them propel their business forward. And oftentimes what happens is people quit because things aren't working. They're like, how do I get clients? Well, it's not as hard as you think it is.
Right.
There are some steps to do it. It does take a little bit of work, but once you get that in place and you start to get that inertia going, and then you're going to start not having to market at all. You know, word of mouth. That's I think what all independent trainers strive for is getting enough people in there that they have overserved and just give them everything, which we're supposed to do anyway.
Yep.
And then in turn, they tell their friends, their family, and then now they are your marketing material for you because you've.
I'm actually a little bit
job.
different when it comes to that kind of stuff, though. I'm actually like, so for me, and this is not, I'll be the first one to tell you this is not good business advice coming right here, is that I actually don't take referrals. I know you're looking at me like I'm crazy, but like I don't. The reason why I don't is because I value the relationship with my clients to such an extreme level that I don't jeopardize that. That sounds, and I can understand why somebody would completely disagree with that, and they're right. Like, you know, I'll be the first one to say it, but like, you know, I am actually against it. I don't tell people to do that for their business because that's just silly. But for me, is I don't take referrals. Like it's and I actually go out of my way to tell people that like, hey, listen, like, you know, just if you want me to find you a trainer, I'm more than happy to, but it's not going to be me, you know, for your friend or your whoever. Yeah. It's just like I value the relationship, and I think that that's something that is tremendously undervalued in the industry. You know, from a personal training standpoint, I think that just the relationship, if the relationship is there, you'll retain your clients longer. You'll make essentially more money from them in the long run by maintaining that relationship as tight as you can.
But if you're so good, which you are, and they want everybody else to see how good you are because you've helped them along their way in their journey.
Yeah.
Say they've lost X amount of pounds. They've lost all their goals have been, they're done. You did them all together. Of course they're going to tell their friends.
The thing though that when it comes to that type of thing, and I agree with you, is how do I put this to make it make sense? I don't take credit for my client's success.
Okay.
Like for when my clients do well, I genuinely don't believe that it's like without me, they wouldn't have done that. Like, cause you have the self-discipline that it requires. Cause like if I'm seeing somebody even 3 times a week for an hour, you're seeing them less than 5% of the week. There's certainly enough time for things to go very poorly outside of the gym that I'm seeing them, or even during the times that I'm talking to them outside of the gym. Like I make it very clear to my clients that I don't take credit for their success. But what comes with that though is I don't take responsibility for their failures. So I separate myself from that as much as I possibly can. I do a good job for my clients. I do everything that I possibly can, but ultimately they're the ones putting in the work. And so I think with that when I get them to believe in themselves in that way, the referral thing just doesn't necessarily come up. And I don't know, like it's a hard thing for me to describe, but I do go out of my way to reject them.
I see where you're coming from. It does
Hopefully
make
that
sense.
makes
Yeah.
Or people are like, oh my God, this guy's a moron.
Because I look at referrals being kind of the lifeblood of a business, like any business. Like somebody refers you to a movie because it was awesome.
Definitely.
Like, oh man, I'm going to go see that because you referred me there. And then maybe you have a different opinion of what you just saw or not, but at least
So
they
that's
said it
social
was
proof.
good. Yeah.
Social proof is there's nothing that moves the needle more than that.
Yeah.
So you're 100% right. 100% right.
It's reverse psychology you're playing here.
Now, from a review standpoint, though, is I'm all over that.
Yes.
I want people, people who are maybe considering me to read about the experiences that my previous clients have had, or current clients, whatever it is. So that's a very critical part of I would say that's probably one of the most critical parts of running a successful personal training business is you have to have the social proof behind it. So when people do say like, hey, Doug has helped me, do this and that, that's great. I think that gets them interested in the idea of personal training. And I think that people realize that it's them and it's not necessarily me.
Yeah.
I just try to put them in the best position I possibly can to succeed. That's all.
I think you're being too humble. I think part of it is you.
I don't
You're
look
the
at it.
guy.
I'm not trying to be humble. Like, it's just, I'm really, it's not like a thing where I'm trying to say like, oh, like I'm just a good person or something like that. No, it's just the way that I've seen it and the way that I like to run it. But like I said, I wouldn't necessarily give that advice to somebody else. That's just the way that I see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I wish it were something else, but it's not. Like, yeah.
So what else? What advice? Like when you bring on a new coach who's an independent. Now I'm assuming they're independent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
Completely independent.
Completely. So they can have their own identity, their own name, and all that.
Yep.
Cool. So what if somebody were to want to work in your studio now? What would that onboarding process look like?
Super simple.
Yeah.
The only things that I need, like an LLC, is not required. We can kind of get into that, but an LLC is not required. All I need is a copy of insurance. I usually like to see a copy of like the certification, but I don't necessarily require it because since they are independent, their insurance covers them and their business. It has nothing to do with me. So that to me is kind of between the coach and the clients that they have. So really just need a copy of the insurance. They get a key to the place. They can come and go as they please. And then if they want the business help, it's not like I force it down anybody's throats or anything like that. If they want it, I'm there for it. Most people don't need full comprehensive business coaching in the first place. They just need, some of those like little, sometimes it's as simple as like a perspective.
Yeah.
So they just, oh, okay, now I get it. And start doing the thing. But yeah, super simple onboarding process. Nothing very complicated about it. Simply because like they are self-employed. You know, like I'm not their manager. I don't manage people.
Yeah.
You know, it's come and go. You know, there's general gym rules. You know, but that's it's nothing crazy. You know, just come in, do your thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Again, I wish it were more complicated.
I was waiting for a more complicated answer, but
Yeah, no,
I mean
it's-
that's really, if you're independent, all you need is your insurance. So who do you have an insurance provider that you recommend?
I use Next Insurance.
Next, okay.
Like I have my personal training insurance through them. I have my studio insurance through them. It's just simple.
Yeah.
You know, like it just doesn't need to be anything too complicated. It's easy to set up. So you set it up all online. It's not like you need to talk to somebody. So
Right.
that's nice. I should be a salesman for them.
You should be. I was about to say, are we endorsing Next?
Yeah, right.
All right.
They get my full endorsement.
Okay.
Just easy to sign up. It's probably one of the cheaper ones out there, if it's not the cheapest. Good coverage, you know, the whole deal.
You
So
need
like,
to have it. As an independent, you need to have insurance.
like,
Your LLC is going to protect you a little bit, but the more layers of protection you have, the better.
absolutely. Like it's like for me, I have an LLC for my training business. I have an LLC for my gym, for the gyms, actually independent of each other as well. And that's just for like an accounting purpose. But yeah, insurance. There's too many people out there who don't have insurance to save $20 a month. And it's not even $20 a month. It's like I pay like $17 a month for the cost that it is.
Right.
It's an absolute no-brainer, must have.
Yeah.
No question.
I've been using Insure Fitness for several years, and that's the one that I recommend to our students.
Yeah.
It's just a personal training business. It's not car, auto, motorcycle. It's just,
Yep.
it's dedicated to this industry. And I think it's, our students get 1 year, $3 million coverage for $25 for the first year.
Take it.
What we do.
Please do, yes.
That's the
Take
agreement
it.
that we had. We talked
Sure.
together, and then after that, it's full price. It's like $170 a year after that, which is
It's fine.
to have
Like,
that umbrella, that coverage.
Yeah.
You got to have it because you just never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, like it might not even be like, something that happens in the gym, but when that attorney calls, that person
Yeah.
and says like, "Hey, what were the things that you've been doing recently that might have caused this?"
Exactly.
I don't want my name being thrown in that loop to begin with, but if it is, that insurance policy has to be there.
Yeah, it's nothing.
It'll just ruin your life otherwise.
Yeah.
For the cost, it's the peace of mind that comes with it is worth far more than the $20.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
for sure.
Yeah.
So say somebody comes in and they're pretty green, they got a certification. What would you help them with the business first? What would you set them up with to get to help them become successful and to get clients?
The first thing is, how good are you at communicating? Communication is the foundation of it.
Yeah.
And so I teach a lot of communication. The first, I have my business course. Takes about 6 to 8 hours to actually go through. The first probably 2 hours is just pure communication of just understanding what is being said, how to say things that are easy to understand for somebody who does not talk about this stuff ever. Just trying to make it as simple as possible. Understand what problem are we trying to solve?
Yeah.
And how to get the most out of it. I think that most trainers, when they're green, it's so much easier. Like I don't have to kind of walk back some bad habits that have developed over the years. So when they're green, they're usually just a sponge, and I've got 15 years worth of personal training experience. I think that matters of saying, okay, somebody will listen to what I have to say, kind of plug it into their own personality. And I have to make it adaptable to everybody's personality, not just mine.
Yeah.
And so like when you teach communication up front, it allows the flexibility to be who you are while still maintaining, a path to success of having somebody contact you to signing them up in the gym.
Yeah.
So communication is absolutely first.
Hey, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, it's not just communication, but it's also confidence. If you have both of those, you're going to be a great coach. You're going to be a great independent coach.
Yep.
Because confidence comes with education.
Yep.
Confidence can also come from being a BS artist. So there's some BS artists
It
out
can.
there that don't know much, but they're good at BSing and they're confident with
What do
it.
you think that makes somebody good at BSing though? Like, because I mean, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
What do you like? Yeah, I would consider it like almost to put it in a different way of, you talk about somebody that has the gift of gab.
Yes.
So what do you think that is? Like, if you had to define what is the gift of gab, or how do you BS your way through it?
Narcissism comes to mind.
Yeah, sure.
Some people like to talk about themselves. Some people are just very confident in everything they say. There's some people that can sell anything. Like snake oil salesman.
Sure.
You can give them any product and they can sell it. Some people just have that natural gift.
Sure.
And they'll do okay. But with confidence in what you can do to help that person and the communication together, it's hard for them to say no to somebody who's got the confidence, who does communicate well, to say no. Because if somebody's sitting in front of you, it's because they want the help. Is it going to be you or somebody else?
Sure.
That's how
That's how we
teach the students. They're there because you didn't force them to be there. They're there because they're on the fence.
Sure.
They just need the right person to get them on the side of fence of health and wellness and fitness, and pick that person to help them.
The way that I put that same thing is that, like, somebody has ran most of the race. You're just helping them cross the finish line.
Yeah.
It's essentially how I see it, because if that person is sitting there, I have to ask myself, like, what do I really need to sell that wasn't sold to get them there in the first place?
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're in front of you, so it's your time to shine. So if you can't communicate effectively and you're not confident in what you're saying, they're not going to work with you. They're going to go elsewhere. And I can't say that in the very beginning. I've been doing this as long as you, 15 years. The first three, like, we did role play in class, sales, and it's so uncomfortable.
Sure.
Prior to that,
Because it's never very practical.
no. Prior to that, I was a sales rep for Coca-Cola. I wasn't the product. The soda was.
Sure.
Super easy to sell.
Yeah.
You walk into any convenience store and say, hey, we got a new product called Vanilla Coke, which was huge when I was working there. It sold itself. How many cases do you want? I didn't have to do anything except, hey, we got a new product, Vanilla Coke. How many cases do you want? If you buy X amount, you get X amount free. That's it. I'm not talking about me.
Sure.
I don't have to be confident because it's the brand has already spoken for itself.
Yeah.
Now we're the brand. Now we're the product. Now we have to talk about ourselves and what we can do. So communication, I agree. That's number one. You've got to be able to communicate. You need to be professional, but also you have to be confident.
That said, though, something that you just said right there is, like, to be able to talk about yourself. I do not talk about myself. I think it's the one thing that trainers should really get away from, because nobody knows what it means. Like, if I said I got, certified through NASM, none of my clients have any idea what that is.
Nor do they care.
Nor do they care. Yeah. Like, and I've never, in the 15 years, I haven't had a single person ever ask me to see it, as if, like, I need to prove something.
I need to see your credentials.
I think that the confidence will come from, I think that a lot of personal trainers are always looking for that thing to say. And it's like get away from that, because it's pickup lines, and pickup lines don't work.
Right.
So, like, there are things that you can say that kind of get things on a particular track that you want to be on. But at the same time, my thing is I teach how to ask questions. You need information.
Right.
Like, I can't make a recommendation to, as to where somebody should start with me, 3 times a week for an hour, whatever it might be, without some information coming in.
Sure.
And, I'm trying to put myself in a position where that person believes that, I know what the problem is, and it's not always as obvious as it seems. So knowing what the problem is number one. Number two is it's simply making somebody feel heard.
Yeah.
I think that people buy from somebody who they believe has an understanding of them, versus just, he's got a good body or she's got a good body, she can help me do the same thing for myself. I think that a mistake that trainers make really from the very beginning is they never put themselves in the shoes of the client. And I think that that's something that it's like, if I could just tell everybody, put yourself in the shoes of a client, it'll simplify just about everything from the very beginning. So it's, if you were to, from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, the whole deal, if you put yourself in the position of a client and think about what would you be wondering, what would you want to know if you were genuinely seeking a solution to a problem that you have.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way.
That's great advice.
So the perspective then is probably the overarching takeaway from like the course is like, okay, I have a new perspective. I understand what it might be like, even if you have no experience. You can still have an understanding of what it's like to be across the table or across wherever you're sitting with that client. Questions will never hurt you.
Right.
They'll never. More information isn't going to hurt you so long as they're relevant questions.
Yeah.
You know, but to me, that's where it starts. So the communication thing is, if you have that, everything else gets just easier.
Yeah. No, I like that perspective a lot. I think that's great advice. When I was talking about you being the product, there are, and I can see, and I'll admit, I fell into this too, because I got out, good education, got people in front of you at 24-hour fitness. Is that what you started too?
No,
I
never did.
It seemed like everybody I talked to lately has been at 24-hour fitness as well.
I was independent from the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
One of the things that at 24, it's kind of different than the landscape now. You know, we had at 24, we had what they call fitness orientation. So you get 1 hour. And people that signed up, you know, for new memberships, they would offer 1 hour free coaching session. A lot of people took up that offer, and then they would put them in our appointment books, and then we would just meet them without meeting them ever before. We were just like, oh, so you're my 11 o'clock fitness orientation. Nice to meet you. Let's go back and talk.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's in the beginning, if you're new and you don't have enough reps, you don't know how to communicate, you're not confident, then we're talking about a person who wants help, sitting across from somebody who wants to help you. But if you're the person that's the helper and you don't have that communication or that confidence,
Yep.
your success rate of being able to help that person is significantly lower than it would be if you're both confident and you're a good communicator.
Yeah.
And one of the things I fell into in the beginning was it's an interesting thing that happened is my very first 3 people that sat in front of me, I sold them on a program.
Yeah.
I went 3 for my first 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is
That'll
easy.
set you on the right path.
I was
as
like-
far as in your head,
Yeah.
at least.
It's like,
yeah.
I'm whatever I'm doing right.
Yeah.
And then I went 0 for like my next 20. Like 0 for my next 20.
Yeah.
It was a dry spell. My fitness manager was like, I can't believe you got your first one. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is easy, man. You know, and then the second one,
Yeah. What's all the fuss about?
got it. I'm like, hey, just leave me alone. We don't have to role play. I
Yeah.
got this. And then the third one was like a 10 pack. So that was a good one for commission.
Sure.
And I was like, wow, okay, I made the right choice by doing this.
Yeah.
And then that dry spell went on for like a week and a half, week and a half, somewhere in there. And I'm like, why did I get a no? I did everything the same as I did the first 3 times. And I started to question myself, and then I started to tweak what I was doing, like on my 6th or 7th one. I should have just kept doing what I was doing. But then I'm thinking, all right, I got to sell myself better. So I knew then that there's a couple ways to get in the industry, and I know that knowledge is king. It's power. It's like, hey, I'm a cardiac doctor. I got an online cert, you know,
Yeah.
or I'm a cardiac doctor. I've spent 10 years
Sure.
refining this craft. I know how to perform surgery and all that. Who are you going to pick?
Yeah.
So I
right.
thought, talk about yourself a little bit. Don't sound arrogant, but make sure that they understand that they're sitting across from somebody who's highly educated. But as I started to do that, it didn't feel right coming out of my mouth. I'm like, I sound like a narcissist. Did
you read like body language across the table and being like they're just kind of drifting away?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
I noticed that a little bit. Yeah. You know, I'd say things like, hey, I just graduated from, an all hands on vocational school. And then I might say a couple other things and it never sounded right coming out of my mouth.
Okay.
Because,
It was like a verbal resume.
yeah, so I'm like, do they even care?
Sure.
Because I think the assumption is if you've got a coach shirt on, you know the same thing. And we know that's not true. You know, it's a huge spectrum of education from when you start to, you'll never end. There's always more information to learn.
sure.
But where are you in that? And do you try to convey that to the person who's looking for your help? And I think the answer is no. It's communication. It's just, like you said, finding the problems or finding solutions to their problems, being a good listener, and not being like a lot of us coaches are in the very beginning. It's a word vomit. It's me, me, me.
Yep.
This is all about me and how I can help you.
Less is definitely more.
Yeah, and
Less
but
is
I,
more.
I fell into that.
It's easy. Like plus, I mean, don't don't discount the fact that you're probably nervous.
Oh, very.
It's just, that doesn't help anything.
Not at all.
And so, this person's sitting across from you waiting for you to say something. I'm sure that it's just kind of like, okay, well, here's all the things that I've accomplished, and it's easy enough to just start vomiting all over the person for sure.
It is incredibly easy.
I would say, I think that sale, just from the very beginning of introducing yourself to getting into a pitch, is so much harder because, I think that what people don't realize is members are not, you are sifting. That is your job. Is you are a professional sifter of every one of those members to find the ones that will pay a little bit more for an extra service. It's an upsell in most gyms. I wish that the people who have had bad experiences at like a big box gym, kind of like what you're describing.
Yeah.
I wish that they knew how much easier it was, to just, everybody's outside of those four walls. The people that I'm talking to are outside of those four walls, so they're not your members. They are not members of any gym. I would say the majority of my clients are not members at gyms.
Really?
So you're not talking to the people who are searching, and it doesn't make sense for you to bring somebody in because you're just not going to, you're going to get paid pennies on the dollar of what you're then doing. But that sale is so much harder because you're having to convince somebody that this is the path forward. So I look at it as everybody that I certainly talk to is between 1 and 99% sold on the idea of personal training.
Yeah.
I'm not talking, if you're not interested at all, there's no reason for us to be talking to each other.
They wouldn't be there if it was zero.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's at least 1%. My job is to take them to 100. And, but the people who I talk to are probably like 95% done, and then, but the people that the newest trainer in the industry is talking to is like 5 or 10%.
Got a long way to
They'll
go.
entertain it, let's kind of see how things go. At least that's the feel that I get from it. And then, okay, maybe I'll consider something or, whatever, but it is a much harder sale, no doubt.
Yeah. And sometimes, when you're sitting across somebody, you're like, this isn't going anywhere, but we're still going to go through normal stuff. And that's actually a good thing that I found when I was at 24, because there's times I'm like, I don't even know why you're sitting here. 5 minutes in, you've already basically said you're just looking for some information. So I'm going to give it to you. Now my nerves go down, and now I'm just more comfortable. I'm not revved up trying to get the sale so my fitness manager is happy and I meet my numbers. I'm like, hey, man, let me just throw you through some movements. You said this is what you're looking for. One of your hobbies is golf. You have back pain. Let's do a little P&F stretching real quick. Let's get rid of that. Let's put you through some mobility movements, a couple maybe muscular endurance movements, and see how you feel. If at the end of that they feel great, then you've just added all this value that they didn't know you had.
And the thing that I would add to that of what I hear from like a business perspective is there's no pressure. It takes the pressure out of the room.
Yeah.
If you're making a sales pitch, you're probably going to get sales resistance.
Good point.
I think that it's like, if you just have conversations with people and be ready to help, I think that there's a lot of people, especially like if I'm active on Reddit, we've talked about that.
We did.
But like, if I'm active on Reddit and I see like, just like, yeah, but I like this stuff is valuable, bro. I don't want to give it away. It's like, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, just sometimes you have to do those things to show that like, maybe it's just as simple as to show that you're just a normal person and you just know the thing that they don't, and they need that help.
Yeah. But I think it takes reps too, to get comfortable.
For sure.
And to work on, communication.
I still remember my first clients. Like, I'll never forget that.
Rough.
Yeah, well, different. Like, it was just like, I had to remind myself that like, I know more than them. Mm-hmm. Regardless of how I feel in the room at the moment, like, I do know more than them. And the reason why they're here is because they know that too. Like, why else, they would be telling me then what the problem, what the solution is. But, I had to kind of remind myself, and I'd be kind of doing it in my own head. Like, it's okay. Like, I know more than them. Yeah. And I think that there's an inclination to think that most people want to learn this stuff as much as we know it. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. Like I think that some people develop that interest, while you're working with them. But I think that I try to do a little bit less, when I'm meeting with somebody, especially for the first time, because it's easy to kind of like flex your knowledge muscles on them, and they might just be looking at you going like, I'm good. Like, just help me with this and let them develop the interest in it themselves versus just trying to say like, this is, you got to love it. You got to love it.
Yeah.
Most people don't.
Yeah. Yeah. It just comes down to practice.
Yeah.
It just comes down to practice. You get more and more comfortable. The last several years as an independent, it was nerves calm as could be. I've done it so many times that I wasn't redlining in my head like, you gotta make sure you use big words and stuff like that.
The difference of who you are 30 days into it from the first day is completely different.
It is. Yeah. In the beginning, it could be a little bit frightening. That first session that I had, fitness orientation at 24, I was nervous.
Sure.
I still remember this person too, and I couldn't believe she said yes. I was like, I did all the talking.
Yeah.
And I knew that I was doing it. I just couldn't shut up.
Do you think that she would have done it even if you said half of what you said? Or do you think that what you said pushed her over the edge?
I think she was already there to get help. No matter
I would
who
probably
was in front
agree
of
with
her.
that. I think that and that's why I say kind of like a lot of the times we're standing in the way of them doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we say too much and it's just kind of like, the best way that I put it to give perspective is it's like dating in a lot of ways. Like you can't just ask for marriage on the first date. Have you ever been on a date where the other person only talks about themselves exclusively?
Yeah.
Did you go on a second date?
I don't think so.
No. Like,
Pretty
and
sure.
having a good conversation, learning a little bit about each other. They'll ask questions, you ask questions. Just take the pressure out of the room of like, I need to know if we're going to get married, because if we're not, what's the point of going on a second date here? Like, and there's a lot of similarities, to dating for personal training, is because like you're just having a conversation of like, hey, what are the things that you like to do? What are the things that you don't like to do? Like I'm not looking to torture somebody in a session. What do you want to work on? Like, how are you feeling? I think that emotion is probably the thing that we need to start selling more of.
Yeah. Just be empathetic. Make sure they know that you care. I think those are two very important things that they understand, that you're just not going to be a drill sergeant. You have to show that you care. Otherwise, they're not going to want to be with you. I mean, there's some cases where, like, we've got a person in class right now. She wants a drill sergeant.
Sure.
She wants somebody to yell at her. I'm like,
I've had people contact me like that say like, this is who I need to be my trainer. And I'm like, well, that's not me.
yeah. Unless you show up like Major Payne, the drill sergeant hat on. And,
yeah. That's just not my personality though. Like it'll never be. And so like when I've had those people reach out to me, it's like, ooh, yeah, like here's a person I got in mind that I think would be a really good fit. And it has to be like that. Cause you'll be exposed. Kind of going back to dating. If you're going to try to pretend to be somebody that you're not on the first date, at some point that's going to come through and you're just not going to be able to hide it anymore. And it's not going to be a good match anymore.
Nope. And then they'll leave and they'll find somebody else who is a better match.
Yeah.
Eventually.
As they probably should,
Probably.
Like I think it's a good thing to certainly be empathetic. I think that we need to be understanding of and getting to an answer of how people are really feeling. I think that that's something that like, somebody can sit in front of you and say, well, I want to lose weight. I want to lose 50 pounds. I don't think that that's good enough to end the conversation.
That's not enough.
It's not. Like,
Why?
Why?
Yeah. Why do you want to lose 50 pounds?
You need to get down to the feeling. What's the feeling that, because it's ultimately the problem that we're trying to solve is not necessarily just weight loss, in this case.
Yep.
It is insecurity that comes along with it.
Yeah.
Lack of confidence, kind of the same thing, opposite end. Just do you feel good about when you look in the mirror? Do you feel good about who you are? And in today's society, that's I think an interesting, I'd like to run this by you, is kind of like, what is the definition of support, that people might have? Let me give you a little scenario. there's two women in an office. It's a quiet office. It's, just they're both going to get coffee at the same time. One lady says to the other, I've been considering seeing a personal trainer. Like I'd like to, lose a few pounds for summer or whatever it might be. The other person says, oh, sweetie, you don't need to lose weight. You're perfect just the way you are. Is that support or is that not support? What's your opinion of it? No wrong answers. Just what's your opinion of it?
I'm going to go with not support.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice that she's like, oh, you're perfect. You don't have to make any changes. But to the one that wants to make changes, that's not support to her because this is what her wishes are. This is what she wants to do. But I could see it being either way.
I mean, look at the way that, like Adele, when she lost, a lot of weight, there were people who basically treated her as a traitor.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Look at all
and how supportive of a person are you if they do something that they want to do and you go like, that's a bad thing. Like I think that's a thing that is really happening kind of below the surface in society that like, especially women are kind of caught in between of like, okay, what's the standard these days?
Yeah.
Like there's, you're going to make an enemy one way or the other, it seems.
Yeah, we got body positivity for people that are unhealthy, and it's in most people's eyes, you're unhealthy. I get the positivity.
Just objectively.
Love yourself, but also better yourself.
Sure.
You can do both. You just, like, to your point, there's not just with like Adele, but think about comedians that were overweight and then they were relatable to a specific population. Now they lose all this weight, no longer relatable.
Yeah.
Now I don't like you. Now you're not funny. Same material. Mm-hmm. It's interesting.
It is
the human mind, how it works. And
absolutely. And we have to, like, and in my opinion, from a personal training perspective, it has to be at least somewhat accounted for. So like when I am talking to somebody, how they feel about all of it, including something like that, is, I think, important to understand. Like I'm just trying to understand, where are you right now?
Yeah.
I know what you want to do. It's most of the time it's fairly obvious walking through the door, that like, okay, weight loss is going to be, kind of the goal here, but why?
Right.
And getting them to say it. I might know the answer, or at least I can assume that I do. I do think that that's a pretty big mistake when you go like, oh, well, hey man, like when you lose that weight, brother, you're going to feel so much better about yourself. You're going to sit there and go like, I hope so, because like, otherwise what's the point of this? Because if I were to ask you, okay, if you lost the 50 pounds and you did not feel any better about yourself, was it still a good investment? Most people, I believe, would say no. So if that's what the investment is for, we need to understand what it's actually going for.
Right. Well, to what you said about, people come in and they say their goal is 50 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as you said that, that's why I said why.
Yeah.
Not questioning you, but why do you want to lose 50 pounds? There's always more to the story. There's you may have heard this before. You know who Dean Graziosi is?
I don't.
He's got the Millionaire Success Habits, that book.
Okay.
He does this little, it's called 7 Layers Deep. If I'm saying it correctly, 7 Layers Deep. Okay. It comes to why. It's 7 whys to crack the nut, to get to the epicenter of that onion. And they've done some of these experiments with people at some of their seminars, and it gets emotional every time you ask why. It gets more and more emotional until they realize the seed that started the whole thing.
Yep.
What created this big giant onion that's now getting peeled back? What started all these layers? And it's something that I tell our students to do is to ask why. Just don't do it 7 times, because you're gonna have you might have a
you
mess
don't want
in
to look
front
like
of
a 5-year-old.
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 times is what I would do when I discovered this, and this is something that I've been told to do years and years ago. Is it's not always the first goal they say. There's reasons for that. There's other reasons for that main goal.
Yep.
So find out, understand where they're at and why they want this.
So the way I like the way, I don't know who that person is. I have a very similar way of showing that. I use, that picture of the, it's like you can see the top of the iceberg and you can see the bottom.
The NASM illustration,
sure.
OPT model.
Yeah. But like I'll use that and say like, okay, like it's easy to say, I want to lose 50 pounds. That's the stuff that sits on the surface. Everybody's willing to say that. They come in ready to say that.
Yeah.
What they're not prepared to show is the stuff that lives below the surface, and then certainly not the stuff that doesn't even see the light of day. So like, I like the idea of like, what you said too is like 2 or 3 whys pretty much gets the job done. I think that 7 is probably like, you're in some deep shit there.
You gotta
like,
be Dr. Phil
like
to
you're
deal
in
with that
you're
one.
in it then. But
Yeah.
like, I think that the way that you get there is not necessarily just through saying like why.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I flip them from a logical conversation to an emotional conversation is typically through just one single question. And they say, okay, hey Doug, I want to lose 50 pounds. Okay. What are 2 things in your life that would improve as a result of you losing 50 pounds? That's not a question that they're prepared to answer. So you're going to get a legitimate answer. And it's just, I just sit there and wait for them to speak. I know that the answer is likely to be insecurity, like I won't, I'll feel better, just little things, that in that little second layer of that iceberg that it still sees the light of day, but you wouldn't see how big it is. Getting down to that's when we flip, at least that the way that I teach it is we flip the conversation from a logical conversation to an emotional conversation. What are you trying to buy? We know what you're paying for. You're going to be paying for personal training. What are you trying to buy? Is the philosophical difference, kind of a perspective difference of when you buy insurance through whoever, Next Insurance or anybody else, what are you buying? You're paying for insurance, but what are you buying? You're buying peace of mind. So what is this person trying to buy? Like that's when I work with trainers, it's like you need to be able to determine through their words, not your own, what are they trying to buy?
Yeah.
Goes a long way. Because then when they look at the numbers on my price sheet, we're looking at numbers of what does it cost to feel that way versus how much does it cost to train 3 times a week?
Right.
I don't want that. I want them thinking this is how much it's going to cost me to feel that way, because what's the price tag for that? What's the value for that? Like
priceless.
It's priceless. So that's the conversation. And now it becomes about what can you practically do? So like reasonably, like, okay, I've got a 5 times a week for an hour. It's $1,600 on my price sheet per month. I know that most people are probably not going to land on that. Now it's, hey, I think 3 times a week for an hour would be a really good fit for you. And so when they look at $960 a month, that it's not just, oh my God, it's okay. Like maybe I don't want to spend that much, but it's not like there's no value attached to that number.
Yeah.
I'm trying to attach value to that number.
I love it. That's perfect.
And getting them to say it is, that's the difference. I can tell you, that you're going to feel amazing when you go to the beach and you take off your shirt, bro. Watch out. You're going to have to, sweep the ladies away,
right.
But, getting them to put themselves in those shoes and say things out loud. Just get them to say things out loud. And I'll if somebody's a little bit more stubborn and they kind of give me an answer that I'm like, that's not good enough, I'll be like, okay, but what would that do for you? That's when you get the stories. And it's not just about, weight loss from an aesthetics perspective. In your experience, has anybody told you that like, well, the reason why I want to lose weight is, next year's my 50th birthday. And when, I think about it, like my dad died when I'm his age. Like, and it's like, oh man, like you're just like, you're melting down with somebody sitting in a consultation because like you're getting into the real stuff now. Mm-hmm. The reason why that they're here is not because they just need to lose weight, is because like they're a little scared. They're scared of maybe like, they know how it was to be a kid and their dad died and they have kids of their own and they're going like, I'm my dad's age and like I'm not as healthy as I maybe should be for that. And when you get down into those conversations, I mean, there's a lot of personal trainers training people right now that don't know that about their client, and they should. They should. And sometimes they learn about it later, but it's like, I'm trying to learn that about that person in the consultation, really as soon as possible. And it's hard to do because it's a stranger in front of you and you're a stranger to them.
Yes.
So like there's timing that conversation I think is very important. I don't do that until like the end. It's because like we have to warm up. If you're on a date with somebody, you can't start getting into like some nitty gritty stuff. In the first 15 minutes before the appetizer shows up on the table.
Yeah.
Like it's going to get weird.
You got to lead them to want to just organically give you that information.
Yep.
Instead of prying. I've never done that before as a coach. I might ask some questions and I'm saying, hey, you don't have to answer this. If I want to dig a little deeper, I'll say, hey, whatever the question is, and I'll follow up with like, if you're not comfortable talking about this, then fine.
Yeah. Yeah. That's giving people the freedom in those types of situations. Most people will do exactly what you want them to do. That from my experience is that like, if you take, whether it's a sales thing or just a conversational thing, if you take the pressure out of it, most people relax and will ultimately give you the information that you're looking for. Much more of a natural conversation because it's not a job interview. Like it's just have a conversation with people. And if you just have those conversations with people, you'd be surprised what people will tell you if you simply ask. But most trainers just aren't nobody's taught them. It's the education. Like this isn't talent. Like I don't have, I have the gift of gab. I can talk to anybody because I can just start asking questions. I don't have to speak. I don't have to come up with something to say. Just ask a question, get the information back. Maybe there's a follow-up question based on what they said.
Yeah.
That's how you have a conversation.
Right.
That's the mechanics of a conversation.
So one of the things that I was taught, I was taught this maybe the third or fourth day I started at 24-hour fitness. So when I was in the MPTI Portland location, we had to create our own intake forms. And our very own from scratch. We had to create our own questions. Of course, the par key was the same. That's the same. Everybody had that in their intake forms. But I had a series of questions like you would get if you go to a dentist, a clipboard.
Yep.
And I was proud of it. I had my own branding on there and I made it my own. And we had
very professional.
Yes, we had the luxury of being able to do the things we wanted to a point at 24. It was our business. Like I said, business within a business. I didn't have to use our forms. So I used this, and it felt awkward. And the reason why it felt awkward is because it was sterile.
Yeah.
Here's some questions.
These are the questions that I've been told to ask.
Yes. So I'm going to sit here across from you for 5 to 10 minutes in complete silence and stare at you while you're writing stuff down, questions. And then you're going to give it to me, and then I'm going to go over your answers.
Yeah.
And it was my fitness manager, Derek Gleason. He's the one that came up to me. He's like, hey, this is how I do it. It was a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
Blank piece of paper, you put a cross on it. Or it was like a plus sign, right? The top left was goals. Top right was nutrition. Bottom left was injuries. Bottom right was hobbies. And he's like, just have an organic conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, just sit down. Start off with, break the ice, talk to him about the day. If it's Portland, it's always raining, so it was always easy to, hey, you got coffee? I got coffee too. Everybody has coffee.
Yeah.
There's lots of jokes you can make up there.
Yeah, the weather out there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. They're like,
rainy again.
Yep. Go figure.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I tell, our students to do to break the ice is take them on a tour of the gym first.
Yeah.
Take them through there. If you recognize any of your friends, any of your clients, any of your cohorts, introduce them. Just say, hey, this is my friend who's also a coach here, so-and-so. And just introduce them. And then if you have any clients, that's awesome because sometimes those clients are like, hey, you're in good hands. And I love to hear that, And then I'll pay them later for saying that. But I like to break the ice and just get their nerves down because they're always nervous. People are looking at them. They're about to tell you some things that they don't even tell their family members in some cases. So we'll sit down and I'll just have that clipboard with just that segmented part in the paper. I'm going to say, all right, hey, so let's just start with goals. And then they might start talking. And as they start talking, you're listening. And sometimes it's not goals. Sometimes you go down to the bottom left. Injuries are one of my goals. And then they might be, talk about hobbies. I wish I could do hobbies, but this injury. And then you're just starting to connect the dots. You're letting them talk. Yep. Sometimes you have to lead them.
Yeah.
But it's all about just filling out that paper as much as you possibly can and just having just a casual conversation because that's really what you want to do like you're talking about.
Yep.
And that's what I think that...
It's a structure to a conversation.
Yeah.
Keep you on a particular path.
Right.
But freedom to go on any one of those four corners of the sheet. It's perfect.
And then, as you get more comfortable with it, then you can have the questions at the bottom, right? I started doing this. These are questions I want to make sure I ask every single time. Sleep, stress, 1 to 10, hydration. There's like 7 or 8 of them. I just did this the other day with the class. Sleep,
Pressure's on now.
hydration, stress, job. I want another job, so I get to see if there's repetitive patterns in their movement.
There's a lot of information though in there.
Yeah.
Like if somebody says, Travis, I'm a teacher. Like I teach people to teach trainers to what information can you derive from that?
Right.
Some of it's income, sure.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's okay. What's your schedule like? What's your stress level? Just that I can imagine. There's information even in just the single word that somebody uses. I'm a teacher, and they might not tell you everything, but it's like you can put yourself to some level in their shoes to have an understanding of here's some of the obstacles. Because I could look at it just from you're a teacher. Okay, well my post 5 p.m. sessions are pretty limited at this point. I don't know if I'm gonna I got a possible red flag right there,
right.
For me. And
Totally.
I kind of throw that in the back pocket.
Yep.
Now, did you, with the sheet that you had, when was the time, or did you ever eliminate the sheet and just have the conversation based on that, but not writing anything down again?
I always wrote stuff down. I've
Yeah.
used it for ever.
Yeah.
Like that third day at 24, I scrapped my intake forms and I went right to that, and I used it in perpetuity. I
do the exact same thing. I just don't have. I've looked at because when you describe the original form, here are the questions that some sales guy in the corporate office came up with, as to these are the questions that we have to ask every single person. It's number one, it is completely unorganic. Question number 1 here says, yada, yada, yada. And I need you to answer that because that's my job.
Right.
Not very good. I've looked at those types of forms as being a barrier in between us. I don't want anything standing in between us. When I'm having a conversation with a client, it is just sitting down just like this and just saying, hey, what are we trying to solve here?
Yeah.
So just simplifying it.
That'd be a good way. But if you're forgetful,
For sure.
Because to me, that thing, that form is my program design right there. I can look at things, like sleep. All right. Well, I don't know how I'm going to fix that with exercise, but there's things I can mention that may help them get better sleep. Like, hey, I don't think it's a good idea to work out at 7 p.m. If you're having a problem sleeping, this is probably not going to help with that. And other advice that goes along with knowing things like, what your job is. If you're sitting all day, I know we've got some movement issues. And we're gonna work on those here in a few minutes. I'm gonna have you do some body weight bridges, wake up those glutes because they're probably asleep. Stretch out those hip flexors, and maybe you'll feel like you're standing up more erect than usual after we do that.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a new feeling. Yeah, we woke up a muscle that you sit on all day.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of this information. I look at it after our session, and it guides me to their first workout, what they need, what I need to look out for. Their injuries are definitely going to direct me to what I need to look out for.
For sure.
Is this something that I can fix? Is this a muscular imbalance, or is this something that's more structural that I have to look out for? And I'm gonna fish for that information. If somebody says they have chronic back pain, have you gone to a doctor? No. Well, at this point, I'm just guessing if it's structural or muscular.
Not a good place to be.
I want to know, and I'm gonna fish for that information. Like, oh man, you got back pain. Well, maybe it's just because you sit all day.
Yeah,
that would make sense. So let's wake up your glutes, rector spine, all that sort of stuff. So I want to look at this after we're done and extrapolate all this into their first week. I don't want to forget anything. But doing it like we're doing right now, instead of them seeing you writing, periodically looking down, and they're like, what's he writing?
Right.
I could see how that would be better.
Yeah. To me, because my consultations from start to finish are about an hour. I'm putting them through, we have about 10 or 15 minutes up front of just kind of basic conversation. Because again, being independent changes things. I'm not having to convince anybody of anything as far as personal training goes. They're standing in front of me. They got to the gym. Walking through the front door is the hardest part. But once they're sitting in front of me, it's okay, I know that don't really have to sell very much of anything. I just have to have a better understanding of where this person's coming from. First 10, 15 minutes are, paperwork, liability waiver, Part Q, just making sure that I demonstrate kind of from the very beginning that this is professional. Like, this is not, just like, hey, let's go sling some weight around, immediately. I know nothing about them. A little bit of a basic conversation. What do you want to work on? I'm not an assessment guy. I don't do any assessments. Not on the first time. On the first, paid session, okay, let's see where things really are, because like that's when it matters. But for like a first, session, I want that person to understand that like I'm going to do this the way that that's going to work for you. And I don't have any particular plan with anybody that walks through the door. It's just I'm coming up with it on the fly, based on the things that they're telling me, based on the things that like I think that they're capable of doing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like just the conversation. When do you then start learning more about them, like on a personal level? Is that throughout that entire time as well? Or is it, is it just strictly business on like the first?
Not strictly business. No, it's wherever the conversation goes.
Yeah.
If they want to get personal, then I'm totally open to that. I want to know more about who's sitting in front of me so I can help serve them better. But as you know, I had this question the other day in class. One of the things that our students have to do is they have to do 2 hours of shadowing. Mm-hmm. Find a trainer out there in the Gym Mesa. There's tons of highly educated, independent trainers in TG Mesa. Go find one of them. Most of them are open to letting you just watch and observe. Well, one of the students observed one of the gals there who's a IFBB pro, and she was listening to the conversation, and they were interacting a little bit. I told them, hey, it's a shadow. Be a shadow. Don't talk unless being talked to. This is their time, not yours. Mm-hmm. Just observe and if there's any good cueing that you hear or communication styles that you like, that's when you bring it in. Write it down. Go, hey, maybe I can add this. But they were having a conversation, and our student found out that the client that was with this coach has been with her for 6 years, and and the student's like, I thought that people just stayed with the trainer for like 3 months, 6 months at the most. I'm like, no, you can have clients for life.
Sure.
I still have 2 clients from 15 years ago that I do online training with.
Yeah.
We have that rapport. We have that relationship. They know that I'm going to do right by them. We do check-ins. They were friends, which is what they become. Your clients become friends.
Absolutely.
And I've told them before that be prepared to go to weddings, go to funerals.
I actually have a wedding invitation for one of my former clients sitting in my car right now.
Yeah. I've had clients babysit my daughter before.
Sure.
It becomes a family. It becomes a community. And that community just feeds off each other. You've got people that are becoming friends that weren't friends before that were within that community, and it just grows. I don't think people understand I can't think of a more fulfilling industry to be in. I just can't think of being in an industry where we can help people as much as we do.
Let me tell you some things about that. Like, because I wish that trainers would really wrap their arms around that. It's like, I'm not, when I drive home at the end of the day, I'm not thinking about like, oh boy, like, if I don't do something about Stacy's marriage, like it's not even on my, like, people, a personal trainer is in a unique position. And I would consider it a higher frequency hairdresser. Stylist, whatever the terms are.
Sure.
I have no hair, so hey.
Same.
It's like you are somebody you are not connected to anybody else in their life. That's but that's kind of like the details of like why I don't take referrals. It's because like that relationship to me is not to say, I hate saying this because like, it's going to sound too profound, but it's kind of like a sacred little relationship that you have with people. Like, and people tell you things because you don't know their spouse or their partner. You don't know their manager at work. You don't know their coworker. You don't know, the people that, so like when you can go to your personal trainer, and I have experience with this myself, is that like when you can go to your personal trainer and like you on the way home from work, you had a shitty day. Sorry if I...
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. So like you had a bad day and, before you get home though, you get a good workout in. You had a trainer that sat there and just, took it, bounced off the ears, and you go home and you're a better husband, you're a better wife. It's not just like that you had a really good workout. It's that you become a slightly better person, in my opinion, if at the very least, because you have an outlet of a person who will hear your problem that isn't trying to solve it, Like the list is fairly long for that type of stuff. And when I heard trainers in the past, and you've probably had experience with it too, is that they go like, "Oh man, I'm just tired of my clients bitching to me."
I've heard that. Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to be in this industry in the next 12 months if you continue that attitude.
Yeah.
If you think that you're there to solve that problem, you're just wrong.
No.
Like,
They're not there with you for that.
I'm not their therapist. It's like, no, you're not.
But you're
Neither am
somebody
I.
to talk to.
But I have
somebody to
ears
vent
that
to.
work, and I can ask follow-up questions. Do I need to challenge this person a little bit? Do I need to say like, hey, you know what? Give them a pat on the back and say, you're doing all the right things. Hang in there.
Yeah.
That's how you take somebody from 3 months to 3 years.
Yep.
Because they come for the training, they stay for you. So that trainer that they're working out with is not their trainer anymore. That's their friend.
Yep.
And they just happen to pay that person. But if that stopped, they're still friends. Like, I still talk to some of my clients. I'll still call up half of my clients and be like, hey, I've got a gap between 4 and 5. You want to come in and work out with me today? And just shoot the shit with somebody for an hour, and, where I'm not going to do anything else anyway, I can maintain that relationship. And the number of clients that I like at the end of that session go like, hey man, like, what's your availability like on like Tuesdays and Thursdays? And it's like, they're my client again.
Yeah.
So the first time, like when I lose, when somebody cancels, the first people that I'm calling are former clients, saying like, hey, let's catch up. Just come stop by in the gym with no expectation behind it. I just genuinely do want to hang out with that person. But I also know at the same time that it's not a terrible business decision.
No, it's not. Yeah. Huh. So 15 years you've been a coach. So you started off with the certification, went immediately into the industry as an independent.
Mm-hmm. Because I came from an advertising background. I had an advertising agency before.
Okay.
So like,
now
we're getting into it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did advertising and there was some overlap, for sure. But, once I saw like, how genuinely interested I was in, the fitness stuff, it was just kind of like, it was hard to continue paying attention to the ads.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it was, for me, I love it to this day, because I found what is truly my calling.
Yeah.
Like, and I wish that people can experience that, because I'm 39 years old. I'll be 40 this year, but like, and 39 is an old trainer, like I'm not, 22, 23, 25, so I am an older trainer, and I think that helps
It does.
in a lot of ways.
Absolutely does.
Life experience matters.
Yeah.
And I think then just from a client perspective of like, when you're married, you have kids, you're running businesses, you have the same responsibilities, maybe just different responsibilities, but, essentially the same responsibilities as most of your clients.
Yeah.
I think that people can relate to you better,
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I got into this industry when I was 35. I thought I was too old. I got a job.
How old are you now?
50.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a job at 24 right out of school. And immediately I'm looking around at all the other coaches. I'm at least 10 years older than all of you.
Yeah.
But what happened is I was more relatable to more people who wanted help. Not many like early 20-year-olds want help. It's usually going to be like the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
For sure.
That's that's where people are like, I've got more money to allocate for my health. My kids are off to school now. Now it's me time. That's where I think the sweet spot's right in the 40s.
Yeah.
A lot of my clients were in the 40s.
Because things aren't
and
working the
50s.
same as they used to.
Right.
My wife and I were talking about it last night. Like, I've just like, 29 is different than 39.
It totally is.
And like it's a real thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it didn't take me long to fill up my schedule, because I think I was the one that looked a little bit more wise, maybe, or looked like I was maybe a little bit more confident. I could definitely, 35 as opposed to like a 21-year-old me, completely different communication style, completely different person.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think in a lot of ways I was more relatable to those who wanted the most help.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I succeeded in that environment more so than a lot of other coaches, because I did come off probably more professional.
Yeah.
I'm more so now 15 years later than I was then, but I realized that communication and confidence were two key components to being successful in any venture. So
and just credibility comes with
too.
it.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it is true that like at 22, you just don't have the same credibility as you will at 32.
yeah.
And like, I think that people sometimes write that off. where it's like, yeah, but I know this stuff. There's no question that any trainer is capable of helping really any client. You know, I think that there's a lot of focus that goes on to that. I think that it will work just fine from a fitness perspective.
Yeah.
But when you don't have like the credibility of like going like, yeah, but you don't know what it's like to have, you know, I just had a baby. Like, you know, just, you don't know what it's like to have, you know, these types of responsibilities, and you will, you know, you just don't have them yet. And so I do think that it does help to be simply older.
Yeah. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Even if you just look older, like, you know, just it'll help you, you know, have a little bit more credibility. Who people will be more attracted to those who think that they can understand.
Yeah.
It's kind of as simple as that.
Yep. You're right.
The one thing I do want to talk to you about though is the however you want to say it, niche or niches.
Niche. Oh, that's
niche. I do think that is something that limits a lot of trainers, because the way that it's taught is that you have to pick this one lane, you know, so you pick your niche, but that's it, like nothing more. You don't veer out of that lane. It's tunnel vision from here on out.
Yeah.
It's good advice if you take it as like it's designed to be a marketing help advice type of thing, where it's like, okay, instead of looking at a crowd of people, you're looking for very specific people in that crowd that will help you focus your energy. Because like you kind of, like the story that you told, you know, you went 3 for 3 on your first 3 at LA Fitness.
24 hours.
24 hours, excuse me. You go 3 for 3, and then you go 0 for your next, you know, however many, 20.
Yeah.
Like the, you know what? I totally forgot. I totally lost my train of thought there. I forget where I was going with that.
Niche.
Yeah, I just where I was going with that story though of the 0 for 3 and the 3 for 3 and the 0 for the next 20. Talking to too many of the wrong people will burn you out. Mm-hmm. That's what it boils down to. So like having a niche simplifies that, and it eliminates a lot of the people that you wouldn't. You have no reason to talk to them because they don't fit in that particular mold. However, it's fairly common from my experience that a lot of trainers choose the same niche, you know, like, or it's not really a niche, you know, like I train, you know, women in their 40s, you know, moms in their 40s.
Right.
It's like that at some point it's just no longer a niche. You know, like when there's a lot of people who
Demographic.
It's a demographic, you know, that's kind of what it is at best. You know, like when you have a niche, it's like, okay, I want to work with like, you know, college male athletes. Okay. Like that's a niche.
Yeah.
Now you have to consider though, like how many people are there around you, you know, that are willing to drive to your gym if that's what you're doing. Yeah. How are you able to identify those people in the market, you know, when you can't just walk up to a school and start, you know, talking about how you're a personal trainer for those people? Is it something that you're going to have to go through their parents for? You know, so if they're high school athletes, okay, like they're not paying for it, you know, parents are. So like, how do you convince the parents that this is a worthwhile investment? I think that niches can, and I think more often than not, limit what you're capable of doing. Is it like, you know, just you have a niche here. It's a good marketing tactic. It's not the only one that you have to have. You can have 3, 4, 5, 10 niches. You just have to know how to market each one of those niches.
Correct. Yep, I agree.
So I think that when people, like, you see it like on Instagram, you see it on YouTube, like have a niche, I get the feeling, and from my experience of talking to as many trainers as I have in the setting that I do talk to them about, that there are just a lot of people who are too narrow and eliminate too many people that they could train and make plenty of money from. And I think that developing that through natural means of like referrals is probably the best way to go. You know, start with kind of gen pop stuff. It's the lowest hanging fruit. You're going to be a successful trainer. You're going to make money. Yep. And as time goes on, you can eliminate the people who don't fit into like a particular niche that you want to work within. Next thing you know, a few years later, you have a business that is that niche.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you reverse the process rather than just starting off.
You don't want to start that way. Yeah, I don't recommend doing that in class. I told them, in fact, Thursday we had this conversation because that was a conversation. Well, that's what we taught was niche. What is your niche? But I prefaced that before I even started by saying you don't have to have one now, but it doesn't hurt to think about who your ideal client might look like.
Yeah.
If you don't know what it is now, you're gonna find out as you get in there and you work with general population. You're gonna find it.
Yep.
And maybe you don't, but there is, in my opinion, having a niche means that you're going to be working with people you specialize with. That's what that is. If you have a niche, that means you need to be specialized in that niche.
Yeah.
What puts you apart? These are the people that I work with. Like on the whiteboard on Thursday, I'm like, think of some niches. And they started to say, women between 45 and 50. I'm like, well, it's a demographic, but we'll put that up there.
Sure.
Busy professionals. Okay, we'll put that on there. And it just started to fill out the board. And somebody said, one of the students said, dang it, handicap, but not the word I'm looking for. What am I looking for? It's not handicap. Handicap, I think, it sounds bad now. What's the new, not even special pop? Like we were at a place, it was called, I did it was Fitness Fest the weekend before last. So we had a booth there for 3 days. I'm trying to remember the name of the facility that we were at there. I'm drawing a blank.
Was that here in town?
Yeah, it's by the airport.
Okay.
Dang it, I can't remember. This is what happens when you get old, man.
I just happened to me 5 minutes ago.
Anyway, so the whole facility, it's really, really nice, and it caters to people that have disabilities.
Gotcha.
Disabled. That's what I was looking for.
There we go.
That sounds way better. It just does. I think the handicap is an old word.
There's somebody out there going, no, that's wrong too.
Yes, I know. But this place was amazing because they had a gym that catered to people that had like CP, muscular dystrophy, that were in a wheelchair, paraplegics, etc. It's for them, and I thought it was super cool. So when the students said people with disabilities, I was like, why didn't I think of this? 14, 13 years ago. Because you got to think about what moves you, what energizes you to go out and help people, what demographic, what population do you want to help? I'm like, could you imagine being a coach that works with people that have disabilities and help them live a better life? To me, I'm looking at like, how rewarding would that have been? Yeah, I help lots of women lose weight.
Sure.
It's great. It changed their lives. But to me, I was just like,
there's levels to it.
That would have been great had I thought of it. And I never thought about it until somebody
Probably
mentioned
because you
it
don't
in
have any
class.
direct experience with working with around anybody like that.
And I don't.
Yeah.
And I don't.
I'm sure that like the person who owns that has some level of pretty direct experience around it going like, well, there's where does this exist?
Yeah.
And it becomes a problem that you can solve as a business owner.
Yeah. So I told them, I'm like, hey, if you want to specialize in this, and by the way, I don't think that they are represented enough, those with disabilities, to have coaches that specialize in what they need because
that's hard.
Yeah, we've got different issues outside of just calories in, calories out movement. We're talking more of a specialized skill set. If this is something you want to do, then dive into as much education on this subject matter as you possibly can and be one of the best people out there for that demographic.
Yeah. On top of that is I would say like, if you're doing it because like you think that there's the most money in it, you're probably going to fail. If you do it because it's your genuine interest, you're probably going to succeed.
Yeah.
You'll become a personal trainer because you're interested in fitness. You succeeded at becoming a personal trainer, regardless of what happens next. Now, the same thing is true of like go into that niche, like because you want to. And say like, hey, it may not be as lucrative as, some of the other avenues that I can take. But I do want to, that's, my brother or my uncle, whatever, you have like a personal story as to why you want to help the next person through that. If you can do that, then you're on a good path of success. And my point would just be like, hey, look, you just don't have to have that's the only one.
Right.
That's just want people to understand that, like just because somebody says like, it's a good idea to find a niche, and I agree with that, don't corner yourself at the same time.
Yeah. No, you can have several. Just find something that's going to energize you and make you happy servicing that niche, and you'll be fine.
A lot of people, I think, are going into online training. Like, I would consider that something of a niche. You know, personal training is a niche of the fitness industry. And I think that a lot of people are going into online training and they're probably failing because they're in it for the money, and I don't have to go to work.
Right.
You know, and if you're there, if that's where it is, then it's probably not going to work out very well, you know, because it's just people are really, you know, as much as they might say that they're motivated by money, really just aren't.
Yeah. I talked to one of the things I like to, when it comes to like program design, my analogy is making a dish, making dinner, whatever. I'm a terrible cook, but I love to program design. And that's what moves me is like, is this going to be the best that I can put out there to help this person move the needle that much further? And I think if you don't like program design, then maybe this isn't the job for you, because that's what it all boils down to. It's your end product. You know, communication, confidence, and all that stuff matters, but the final product is what they're receiving and what they're getting out of it. So to me, when I think about, you know, the ultimate goal with somebody is to get them to where they want to go by using all these ingredients, all these seasoning, all these spices, all these base layers, and all this stuff that you can add to the dish to make it perfect. That energizes the hell out of me. It doesn't matter what demographic you're in or what niche or any of that. I love that aspect of training and going, this is what you need. This is the best dish I can make for you. Here it is. And I get excited. I'm like, we're going to do this. Let's see what happens. And then, you know, reassess over time. But I think, you know, people that are just programming online, I don't think they look at it that way. They're like, oh, you want to lose weight. All right, so you're going to do this.
Yeah.
Here you go.
I'm sure that there's both, you know,
There's totally both.
You know,
Yes.
I know that there's people doing very well with online training. You know, I think what most people probably don't understand about online training is then your first job is marketer.
Yep.
You know, like if you're not a good marketer with online training, you're just, it's just, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
You know, you can be the world's best, you know, and the same is true for an in-person personal trainer. You can be a great personal trainer. I've seen plenty of them fail because they, you know, communication aside, they can't generate a lead.
Yeah.
It's everything's downstream. You know, so if you're not a good marketer in online training, you're probably not going to do very well.
Yeah.
If you don't understand what's being, you know, purchased, you know, we know what they're paying for. We need to know what they're buying. So, you know, what is that? But online training is just is an interesting thing. Have you done it?
Oh, yeah. I've been doing it for 10 plus years.
What's the tell me about that. Like, you know, like how often do you talk to them? Do you do like check-ins, you know, that type of thing?
It depends. It depends on what they signed up for.
Okay.
There's just programs that I make for whatever population. They can just buy them. There's no interaction. They're cheap.
Okay.
It's just a template for, if you're looking to lose weight here. You know,
Is that like a 12-week program? Like, or like how does that break down?
The way I do mine is it's 30-day periods.
Okay.
And there's usually 3 of those. So 90 days total if you do all 3. After that, then I'm not going to continue making. We're going to do one-on-one if you want to continue that. You know, catered training. So personalized. Now we're going to dial it in even more than just here's a template that's going to help you get stronger, lose some weight. And there's tiers too, because if you do individualized, that means you're probably going to have a nutrition component to it as well. If you add that, then it means it's going to be X amount instead of the other amount. It's just there's tiers to it. It depends on what they want. But yeah, there's check-ins on some. On the first one just being a program, buy it, do it. We want the next month. Cool, here it is. There's no communication. There can be a little bit, and I don't say you can't reach out with questions. There's just no dedicated check-in on Fridays or whatever day.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to do a 30-minute Zoom or.
In the 90 days, then how much variation is there between, like, you know, is it like this is the workout that you do kind of every week? Is this the kind of like you get month 1, month 2, month 3, you know, and things change up after a month? Like how do you break down variation? Or do you have, how much variation do you actually have in there?
Yep. Periodization. It's kind of the same. It's the same movement patterns. I look at program design with movement patterns. What's associated with those movement patterns? Fundamental movement patterns, and what do they need right now? Or where should they start? So like the first 30-day one is just for beginners. And the first 2 weeks are super similar. Weeks 3 and 4, slightly different variables, same movements. The second month starts off kind of like the last part of the first month did. Some variables change up, you know, reps, rest, not so much rest, but reps we change up. weight, start pushing to where you can only do X amount of reps. We're going to change up the modalities if they have access to those. Usually my plans are going to be body weight. It's the easiest to do because that's where most people need to start off anyway.
Sure.
But I do have some that's, if you have a gym, here's this program.
Okay.
And it's going to be with simple machines.
Yeah, because you can't account for everybody's location.
I'm not going to teach deadlifts online.
Yeah.
You know, that's a skill that you need to be there to learn and perform yourself and have somebody watch you and cue you into perfect motion. So I'm not doing that stuff. It's just machines, basically dumbbells, some kettlebell stuff, especially if it's one-on-one, if it's going to be, specialized to your exact needs. I'm throwing kettlebells, and everybody knows kettlebells are one of my favorite tools on earth. So it just depends on what they want. I've got it. So I don't do it as much as I did. I used to be not a bulk, but maybe 20% of my business was online.
Yeah.
Now it's maybe even 5%. I'm not purposely.
Are you replacing
looking.
it with something else, or is it just kind of like you're just kind of reducing overall?
I've replaced it with running a school.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do one-on-one training anymore. The online thing is just keeping me fresh, but I'm not looking for clients.
Yeah.
My goal is to get our students clients.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's where I'm allocating all my energy now is to that. Even though I do enjoy, program design, we do it together in class, and we kind of go over what could you have done here that's different than this. Not to say it's worse.
Yeah.
Or better, but here's some other ideas we could have done with this person. That's the stuff that really moves me and drives me and excites me is we've got all this information. Now let's put it on paper.
And I think that's what separates like your school versus, just NASM. Reading a book is one thing. Mm-hmm. Having somebody who's done it sitting right next to you, or at the front of the class and being able to share experience with you, man, I try to, from like for Fitness 48, it's like I'm trying to pave the road for people that, I learned a lot of my stuff, obviously through my own experience. I've read a lot, watched a lot of like YouTube videos, that type of thing. But just from a business perspective, like talking to other people and one of my best friends, he's been a trainer for 22, 23 years. He was in it well before me. And it was like, okay, what were the things that if you got to do over again that you would do differently? Mm-hmm. And it makes things a lot easier. I think that having, somebody like you at the front of the class, it's just like, man, that's irreplaceable. I don't know how much you can really have an appreciation for that at that time though, because it's like, if I were sitting there, I'd be like, pay attention, cause this is the stuff that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Well, I went through it.
Sure.
I didn't know I was going to ever do this. I thought I was just going to move up the corporate ladder. And just one fateful day, I was just in LA Fitness doing overhead dumbbell presses. And then some dude spotted me and I asked him how. I didn't ask for it. It's the first week of every term, I mention how I am standing in front of them and why I'm in this industry. It was never on my radar. I heard that as a personal trainer, you had to read a book. I was like, cool. And that's it. You read a book and you pass a test and then you're a coach? Is that really? I'm like, but I don't know movement really.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I want to know that before I teach anybody. I also want to know nutrition, which you learn through a book. It's not applicable. It's not palatable. You don't feel it. Like we teach nutrition and it's not just slides. It's also, hey, here's labels. Find what's wrong with this label. You're excited. Like this is supposed to be healthy. Tell me why this isn't healthy. What did you find in here? Let's work on figuring out what the carbs, the fats, and all that, the calories, and buy a label.
Sure.
Let's figure out what some of these chemicals mean and what they do. You don't learn that in a book necessarily unless you go deeper depths of, say, a different, like a nutritionist or dietitian or something like that. But then anatomy.
And it's just more and more and more. Oh, you didn't learn that thing because we didn't teach it to you. You got to do this now. And it's like you can spend thousands of dollars on endless amounts of certification. And at the same time, it's
yeah.
like if you can get it all in one place, it's like, man, I just simply didn't even know that it existed.
If I never heard of the school, I never would have gone to it, and I wouldn't be sitting here today. I'd still be in corporate America, I guarantee.
Yeah.
But it was because of finding out that there was a place where I could actually learn how to do this stuff instead of read about it. That's why I was like, okay, I'm doing that. If I can actually do it, not just read about it, I want to. It's like a mechanic. Could you imagine? You've got, hey, I read about how to change a transmission, as opposed to a mechanic. I've changed thousands of those.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
well, you're the guy.
Yeah.
I want to be that guy. I want to know what I'm doing. So yeah,
Tell me a success story about from like one of your students in the past.
Oh, there's quite a few.
Anything that really stands out?
Yeah, I mean, we've got some graduates that are at Lifetime. We've got one of our graduates. He's the lead of a senior fitness program out in East Mesa. Now he goes to a few different facilities and does senior fitness. So group fitness in a lot of cases. It's not Silver Sneakers. It's something else. It's a program that he
Sure.
made and is now
That's really cool.
doing it with seniors. We've got tons of graduates in commercial box gyms as their first step. We've got graduates that are in studios, relationships that we've made, much like yourself.
What do you think that most trainers want to be?
I think they
Probably
wanna
in
be-
the big box gym?
I think they want to be independent. Ultimately.
really? Yeah.
Ultimately, I would say 20
Well, like out of the gate.
out of the gate. Well, I tell them the pros and cons of both. I started off going to commercial box gym to get my feet wet, learn how to teach instead of absorb, because I just spent months absorbing information. I wanted to learn how to teach it.
It's a good way to put it.
So instead of going independent right away, I didn't think I'd be successful right away. I had zero, and I didn't really have the time to allocate months to building up a book. So I'm like, I'll get paid, I'll get experience, I'll get in front of all different walks of life. I'll learn more. I'll learn how to communicate better, which I did. It was more reps for me to learn how to communicate more effectively and relate to people. So I think for most people that come into the school, ultimately they want to 90% of them want to be independent.
Yeah.
We have some that have been, we've been here for 4.5 years now. We've got some from that very first term that are still in box gyms. They like it.
Yeah,
Some people
nothing wrong
want
with
to clock in and clock out.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
For sure.
I miss that. I miss that because it's a 24-hour
Tell me about it,
operation when you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But others, they do have that drive. They want to be their own boss. They want to set their own schedule. They want to pay themselves whatever. They want to take vacations whenever. They want to have that freedom, which comes with being an independent. But also, if you take on everybody, then it becomes, well, not so much freedom outside of work. It's more chasing, finances, which is fine. But at some point, you got to get smart and think about how we can do semi-private training, 2, 3, 4 people at a time, and just work mornings and still make the same as you did in a full day and still help as many people.
Yeah.
So there's lots of tricks and things you can do as an independent to grow your business. But ultimately, I tell people that, hey, the commercial box gym is in a lot of cases just a stepping stone.
Yeah.
It's just a start. After that, start to think about, well, do I want to be an independent and where?
Yeah. I think arguably personal training in general and each step within it is a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Like, because like how many trainers do you know are 40, 50 years old? Like you know some.
Quite a few.
Yeah. But like, with the influx of just newer, younger trainers, it is on average a younger trainer's game. And, it's good to see that there's I think that there's a bigger push of doing what you really like to do, and I think that that's why you get some older people, with it. But, to me, it's like, I just love it, but, are you doing the things that, do you want to own a studio someday? Having just what's the next step?
Yep.
Kind of always just on like you talked about it, kind of having an idea of what you want to do, where you want to go with like a niche, like it's okay. Like, the same thing applies to, just when you're tired of personal training, what's going to be next? And personal training can afford you a lot of things. Like I've got cool stories about people who have been very successful and what they've done with that success when the time comes that they want to get out of, the personal training of like just the early mornings or the late evenings, especially.
Yep.
One more thing, and then I got to get going here pretty soon, is what would you say, like if you had the opportunity to give yourself, a 20-word sentence, from going back to your 24-hour fitness, it's your first day on the job, and you can walk up to yourself and give a little piece of paper that says 20 words on it. What would you say to yourself?
Oh man, put me on the spot.
Yeah.
What would I say to myself? I would say, don't give up.
Yeah.
And I would still have a lot of words left after that, but don't give up.
Sure.
I think in the very beginning, I wanted to, I'm like, is this for me? There's a lot of questions jumping from one industry to a completely different one, but it's more fulfilling industry. If it weren't for my wife, I wouldn't be sitting here today because I said, coming from a stable job to the unknown and just changing jobs is unknown.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're going from as a W-2 employee to independent, it's all you.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I questioned myself and was, I don't know if this is for me, but
In
I'm
what
gonna
way
do
did you
it.
question yourself? Like, do I have the ability to like help people or
Not
like
that.
Yeah.
Not that. It wasn't that. I felt very confident with what I got out of my education. It was just, is this something that can be financially rewarding? Because ultimately it has to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't in a place where I'm just like, I don't have to worry about bills
Sure,
or
yeah.
feeding a kid or any of that stuff. That would be great, but that's not the reality of the situation. Is I still needed to make a living and at least do as well as I was as a sales rep for Coke. So that first month, ouch.
Sure.
But my wife said, keep going, give it 3 months. Second month, okay. Third month, we're back.
Yeah. And that's at 24-hour fitness.
That was 24-hour
Okay,
fitness.
yeah.
And after that, I'm like, okay, there is a ton of potential here. I'm just scratching the surface of what the potential is. And that's why I'm like, all right, I ended up being there for 14 months, way longer than I wanted to be. And eventually I just said, it's time to hit the eject button and go independent. So
Yeah.
I asked some friends that were also coaches, independent. I'm like, hey man, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? They're like, how many clients do you have? I'm like, I've got like 40 something. They're like, yes. If only half of them follow you, you are in great shape.
Yeah, for sure.
And most of them did. And it's that day that I made the jump official, that my 2-week notice was over, officially no longer an employee at 24. I was like
Yeah.
scared, but also
Exciting.
everybody was following me. And
Yeah.
I was like, I put the time in, I did the right things, I created the relationships. I obviously care about this. I don't never go home like I did when I was working for Coca-Cola going, I hate my
Sure.
job.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm actually working with somebody right now. He just started at Fitness 48 a couple weeks ago, working with him on, getting him up to speed. And I think that he's similar situation. He's got, he's married. He's got I think a little girl, and he's uncomfortable enough to to be like, I need to focus on, here are the things that I need to do. I think that there becomes like a level of comfort, with like a big box gym trainer, that it's like, yeah, the pay is not great, but it's just good enough. Like it just checks off enough boxes to stay. What do you think that like the thing that holds people back from making the leap from going, from a big box gym to independent? Because I think that what you said is really interesting, because the people that come with you, we talked about it before, like at some point they're there for you and not because like you're a trainer at the gym. That's a dime a dozen. Like what do you think that the hesitation is, to go independent? Because do you think they realize that like your clients really do like you very much?
That's why they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that trainers realize that though?
Maybe not. I was honestly extremely surprised when I had as many people follow me as they did. I had 42 people follow me. And I'm sure there's a, what do you call that? If they hear that I did that, I'm sure I'm outside of that 10-year window where I can get in trouble.
Well, if the
But
door
I-
knocks.
But I had like 42 people follow me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't approaching them in a way that was, hey, I'm moving, come with me. It was like, hey, I want to let you know I got another month left here, and then I'm moving down the street. And then it would just be, how far? Like 2 miles. It's actually the studio of the school that I went to. Can I come? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And it was one after another that I was saying that
Yeah.
to. And they kept asking me, well, can I come with you? I was like, everybody's following me except for a few people. And it was off to the races. But it was still the unknown when I decided I'm going to leave before I did and giving them my 2-week notice, or even just
Definitely.
prepping my clients to let them know that, hey, I'm leaving soon. and then that 2-week notice, and then done, no longer employed. Now it's me walking into the studio going, okay,
Yeah.
let's make this work. And it's just because I did the work up front.
Yeah.
You know, if people follow me, it's because of me, not just because
Yeah.
of my knowledge. It's a combination, and it's a
And
friendship.
I would argue, like, you know, for me, I've been at, you know, my own gym is the 4th gym that I've been at, you know, in 4 years, you know, and I've every time I've moved, I haven't lost a single client. And like, it's like, man, like it's in, obviously if I moved, you know, to the other side of town, that would be a different story. I'm not unreasonable, but like, you know, it is just like one of those things that it's like, there's a good relationship there. And it's like, you know, I just wish the trainers would just kind of cultivate that a little bit, you know, a little bit more and focus on that a little bit more, because you don't have to be the world's best trainer on a daily basis. You know, like if you're there and you're putting the effort into like the relationship, everything else will take care of itself. People are then more motivated because they don't want to disappoint you at the top of all of it.
Well, I mean, ultimately, you're the product. If you're a good product, people are going to want it.
Sure.
And that's how it's all it's about. So let's wrap this up. Where can people find you, Doug?
Fitness48 or fitness-48.com is my website. I've got 2 websites for Fitness48. One is a lead generation website for the trainers, and then the other one is you know, for independent trainers to learn more about it. So fitness-48.com is where to find me. I'm on Instagram, but I'm not a social media guy. Like, you know, I had hired somebody to do it, and those are the posts that I have. And then, you know, it has come to a stop because I've got, you know, it's just for me, I have 0 social media presence for my personal training business. And, you know, social media just isn't, I've got a lot of stuff to do on a daily basis, you know, and, you know, the social media stuff is just, doesn't really move the needle a ton for me. So not much of a presence there, but you can always, you know, text me. I'm always happy to help. Like I've helped plenty of trainers around town that don't even go to Fitness 48. You know, because it's like, I just enjoy this stuff. I enjoy this conversation. Thank you for having me. You know, I just genuinely, you have to enjoy helping people.
You do.
As a trainer or anything else. And if you do that, everything else will take care of itself. Yeah.
I agree.
So I don't like to plug myself too much. It was a good conversation, man. I appreciate it.
This was good. So if you're an independent trainer out there and you're looking for a space, Doug at Fitness 48 has a couple of them. One in Scottsdale. Can we call it Scottsdale? Shea and 51-ish area?
Yeah, Shea and 51.
And then Awatuki. Reach out to him if you're looking for a space and get that conversation going. So, again, Doug, it was awesome finally meeting you.
Thank you, sir.
We'll be talking again, I'm sure.
Hopefully,
It's been great. Let's wrap it up. See you guys.
Thank you.